I'm here at the African Development Bank Conference in Abidjan at the sidelines with Megan McDonald, the head of DCM for Standard Bank. How are you finding the conference so far?
Michael, it's been a phenomenal experience, I think, to have so many people in one place, and the focus being on Africa has been a real phenomenal success. We've had many meetings. I think a lot of initiatives have come out of this, particularly in terms of development of capital markets. So there's a lot for us to work on stemming from the meetings we've had here.
Over the last 4 or 5 years, what role has the AfDB played in expanding capital markets in Africa?
I think the AfDB has provided a strong impetus for the development of capital markets in Africa. They've been a regular issuer of local currency bonds in Africa. Most notably, their recent issuance in Nigeria was a great success. I think by doing those types of issuances, they really test the systems, they test access to the market, and their successful issuances provide a platform for other issuers to come to market, and that's certainly a critical role in helping to develop local currency bond markets. So they play a very important role acting as a catalyst.
Recently, has it been changed to new investors in other parts of the world, in Africa itself, beyond the usual sort of Western fund management investor profile?
I think when one looks at local currency bond markets, these have traditionally been dominated by local institutional investors. An interesting trend that we are starting to see is the increased participation on a regional basis. So a lot of investors in the East African community looking at bond issues in South Africa or in West Africa, a lot of the South African fund managers looking north of the borders, looking to participate across Africa in local currency bond issues. And then we're also starting to see international investors increasingly looking at participating in local currency bond issues where traditionally their investments have been predominantly in foreign currency.
You were talking about the importance of local currency debt. A lot of African countries are issuing euro bonds, are still issuing euro bonds, plan to do so in the future in the sort of short to medium term. What kind of process will it be to move away from that and move to local currency issuance, and how important is that to develop capital markets properly in Africa?
We think it's incredibly important at Standard Bank for the sustainability of the development of Africa. Obviously, there's ready access for a number of sovereigns to the international debt capital markets. But in terms of the sustainability and managing particularly the foreign exchange risk, we've obviously seen a number of African currencies depreciate against the dollar, and that obviously introduces risks into the macroeconomic frameworks of those countries. That's really driving the rationale around the development of local currency bond markets. I think various countries are in different stages of development, but what is needed is a proper architecture, a proper infrastructure, so things like well-functioning stock exchanges, well-functioning settlement and clearing systems which facilitate the participation of international investors in local currency bond issues, secondary market liquidity, that's obviously a challenge as well. Those types of initiatives to promote secondary market liquidity is also important. And then I think making access to bond market funding cheaper, less time consuming, those are all initiatives that all stakeholders, including regulators, stock exchanges, issuers, investors, are all thinking about in terms of improving the depth, the liquidity, the sophistication of local bond markets in Africa.
Just a final question then. We've heard a lot at the conference so far about the importance of an African single market, trying to move away from this sort of diverse patchwork of capital markets, regulations, tariff standards in Africa at the moment. How important is that to develop a liquid capital markets where investors can move money in and out of countries and can spread their reach further?
We think that is incredibly important, and there are a number of initiatives underway to harmonize listing requirements, harmonize stock exchange fees, to allow investors the freedom in their mandates to participate on a regional basis. So we've seen, for example, in the ECOWAS East African community, they're doing really well, I think, in terms of promoting a regional bond market. Obviously, in this region where we are here in Abidjan, the Wemu region, there are also some initiatives underway. So those are incredibly important initiatives as Africa looks to build up a domestic institutional investor base that can invest not only in their home country but across the continent, and again that will stimulate and drive the growth of local currency bond markets.
Megan McDonald from Standard Bank, thanks very much.
Thank you.